Well, 3 of the top 4 Korean teams announced that they're going to keep their rosters the exact same, so SKT decides, okay, well, we'll pretty much do the same thing. They didn't re-sign Huni.
Feels bad, man.
But they re-signed Antara, Blank, Faker, Bang, and Wolf, and Koma coming on as head coach. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it was kind of broke because they didn't look so great.
It was broken.
It was broken.
They didn't win, but so no Peanut, no Huni on that list. So maybe they're looking at another jungler to sub in and out with Blank, and then obviously they need a top laner. Because I don't think they're sticking with Untara the rest of the way. There's been a couple of guys talked to about going to SKT, but Huni's gone. We'll see where he's off to. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of talk about what SKT was going to do. Is the bot lane going to come back? Apparently, yes. Who's going to be jungling? Not Peanut. Who's going to be in the top lane? Not Huni. There's still a couple question marks with this SKT roster. They're not keeping everything intact like these other Korean teams, like Longju, like KT, like Samsung Galaxy. There will be a couple of changes to try to put SKT back on top of the LCK and of the world.
Yeah, and again, this is going to be just an absolutely insane LCK split.
Yeah.
And if SKT plays like they did at times last split, they're not going to Worlds because unless KT chokes again, which is
very possible.
Which is very possible.
Very possible.
But I mean, a guy like Bang, he's kind of talked about the issues of getting burnt out on playing the game, which, by the way, is totally understandable when you're playing this game so often. And especially when you win all the time. So maybe he feels re-inspired, like Faker looked like he did after you lose in the World Championship, because, come on, it gets boring winning all the time when the competition can't beat you. But hopefully burnout isn't an issue for him, and I guess if he re-signed, the team doesn't feel like it's an issue. I'm a little surprised by this. I was expecting some serious changes on SKT, maybe only keeping Faker and 4 new guys around him, but they end up going with the same roster, which, I mean, they did get to the World Finals. It's not like they had a horrible season. But there were times where they looked a little questionable, and they got completely manhandled by Samsung in that final. So a little surprised they didn't do any changes.
Yeah, I mean, you're used to seeing a more dominant SKT at Worlds. And here they looked like they were going to lose some games in the group stage, and then Misfits took them the distance. And then in the Worlds, in the finals, they just got 3 of them. So that's not the SKT we're used to seeing, and sure, you can say it wasn't that bad, but we've seen them dominate time after time. I know they've gone to Game 5 in the past on that World stage, but I mean, they haven't been swept before. They haven't been pushed to Game 5 by a European team, and sure, that thing was great by Misfits, but there's question marks on this SKT roster, and apparently they're going to pin it mostly on that top lane situation with Huni, and I guess they weren't satisfied with Peanut's play, even though it was super back and forth between who was playing better in the SKT jungle. Was it Blank? Was it Peanut? So that's who they've kind of pinned the blame on. The rest is coming right back, even though Bang, not a great performance in the LCK summer. And Wolf, obviously a guy who can make plays out of the support position. Just keep that core, I guess, with Faker in the mid lane. And they're hoping for kind of different results with somewhat of the same roster.
Yeah, well, we'll see how they go up against these other titans in the LCK. If I'm a 5 or 6 seeded team in the LCK, I am terrified for the upcoming season because the top half is some scary stuff. Some other news out in EU, we've got some mid laners not coming to NA. Wow. As PoE leaves Misfits and comes to NA, Senkux, formerly of Splyce, heading over to Misfits, and Mickey X joining him, also from Splyce, taking that spot from Ignar. So that Misfits squad, that actually looks pretty solid.
I don't think you're missing out too much on PoE and Ignar. Obviously, Ignar was this huge playmaker, got a lot of hype after Worlds as well with his Blitzcrank, with his unique champion pool. But Mickey's another guy who can kind of be a playmaker for Misfits. He was pretty good on Splyce, a guy that a lot of people were looking at as maybe the star of that team, someone who stood out from somewhat of the mediocrity that is Splyce every split. I know they pushed G2 pretty hard in that quarterfinals matchup, but overall, I like the Mickey move, replacing Ignar, and then Senkux, kind of similar to what PoE does. Plays the control style in that mid lane. PoE doesn't usually blow you away too much with this huge carry performance. Kind of similar with Senkux, and I almost put them on a similar playing field. Maybe Senkux a bit below PoE, but again, you're not losing too much. So they did a good job of filling those voids left behind by PoE leaving for NA and Ignar leaving for wherever.
Yeah, and I think with so many guys leaving EU, so many question marks in EU, I think this move keeps Misfits as probably one of the top teams heading into the 2018 season, because you saw how fantastic Maxlore was at Worlds, Alfari was rock solid, and Hans Sama really stepped up internationally. So, I mean, they've still got a lot of strengths of this team, and yeah, I don't think they'll notice a huge difference between Senkux and PowerofEvil. And yeah, Mickey, again, a pretty solid guy, another guy who can make some plays. So I think Misfits doing pretty well in this offseason.
Yeah, I won't take them too long to get this chemistry together, I don't think. Again, it's that same core. You got Max and Alfire together, and Hansama was fantastic at World. So if he can keep that rolling, along with Mickey, another guy who's aggressive in lane and goes out and makes plays, they'll be fine.
Yeah, and you got two Splyce guys who also have some synergy with them. Other Splyce news, Kabi staying with the team, going to stay as an 80 carry position for them there, and they've got Kasing coming in to replace Mickey. Kasing, a guy you haven't heard much from. He was playing on Red Bull eSports this past little while in the Challengers scene, and not a whole lot of coverage for him there.
No, I mean, formerly of Vitality, formerly of H2K.
TSM?
Almost kind of TSM for
tournament with
one tournament, so wow, that's a good resume, right? Played on TSM. But no, Kasing's a guy who, he goes back a while. He was once considered to be one of the best supports when he was a duo with Hjarnan on H2K, so he's a guy who can reach that potential again. It's hard to really comment on Splyce too much because there's still a lot of question marks. Trashy's a free agent. Wonder might not be coming back, and obviously Senkux just left the mid lane, so far we only have the bot lane of Splyce, and I guess it's all right. Kabi, Kasing, could definitely be worse.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see a lot in this EU LCS season is, again, some young talent coming up, especially in that mid lane, which seems to happen every year or so. Yeah. And then this talent gets groomed in EU, and then NA swipes them up, and they come over. But, I mean, it never fails. There's so many talented mid laners and in other positions as well in EU, but it really is just becoming a farming ground for NA when they steal a lot of these top guys. And Perks is going to be having a field day, I think.
Yeah,
this
maybe
EU LCS split.
Maybe that'll change in 2019 when franchising comes to EU, but until then, we'll see you in North America.
Yeah, we'll see you over there. Speaking of North America, another team yesterday that almost finalized their roster. Almost, one spot left. Flyquest, they already had Flame. They're bringing in Onda, who was the sub on Immortals, the guy who, you know, had a moderate amount of hype, was really climbing through Korean solo queue during their boot camp, mainly because he was probably not scrimming, so a lot more time to play solo queue. And then obviously Wild Turtle and Stunt in that bottom lane. All they got left to fill is that mid lane, and they do have that highly coveted import slot left.
Unfortunately for them, PoE and Vivin have now been picked up elsewhere. So you look at a guy like maybe Froggen, who just got not re-signed by Echo Fox. He could be going there. But there's not too many options left unless they want to bring High back, which would be interesting. But right now, I mean, the roster looks pretty solid. You kind of don't know what to expect from Onda and from Stunt, but with Flame and Wild Turtle, that's a pretty solid carry base at least. And then you add someone in that mid lane. If it is someone like Froggen, then Flyquest looks pretty decent.
Yeah, I think what you're slowly starting to see is that top four in the top tier with some insanely stacked rosters. Then you got that middle tier, and then you got Optic. I even put Golden Guardians in that middle tier because I have no idea what they're going to do. And then it's Optic alone at the bottom, I'd say. So yeah, that's not a bad start for Flyquest. We'll see what Onda can do because, again, this guy's got a fairly decent amount of hype, and there's not going to be a whole lot of pressure on him playing on Flyquest, so maybe he can showcase that he is a premier jungle talent in NA.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the domestic junglers, there's some question marks. Obviously, Dardoch is a guy who's available, but you never know what you're going to get from him. And there's just not a ton of guys out there. So you take a chance on this young guy, Onda, who's been a sub for Immortal, had all this hype, as you mentioned, was killing it in Korean solo queue. It's probably worth the risk, especially now that you keep an import slot open for that mid lane. I think it's a decent roster so far. So good on Flyquest for making the changes, not sticking with that balls high Lemon Nation core, shipping Lemon Optic to Optic and letting them deal with that. So it looks good.
Yeah, so Flyquest, one spot left to fill. Golden Guardians still got 5 spots to fill. Echo Fox with 4. They've only got that mid lane filled out, so there's going to be plenty more news coming around, and we'll be here to share it all with you.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more esports content.